So, with each passing day since Donald Trump took office, Elon Musk has been making it more and more obvious that he is just blatantly trying to take over the government. He has now taken control of all the payment systems. He now decides what happens with your taxes. He's basically just going full fascist, right? And everyone's starting to figure this out. Everyone's starting to realize that he is a mega loser who is using his power as a billionaire to act as Trump's right-hand man and enforce policies that are going to benefit the ultra-wealthy. And that's always what Donald Trump's entire movement has always been, by the way. A faux populist veneer meant to disguise an initiative by the ultra-wealthy to enforce an administration that would be pro-ultra-wealthy and anti-everyday working-class American, right? And that's where we are now. A good example of this is Donald Trump's tax policy. Donald Trump issued the largest cut in tax burden on billionaires and millionaires ever seen in American history, as far as I know, during his first presidency, and that tax policy was set to expire this year. And so if you're a billionaire who doesn't want to have to pay your fair share in taxes, then you had an extremely strong interest in ensuring that Donald Trump won this election. So all of the most wealthy, powerful, most connected people fought to get Trump in power, to convince people that he was fighting for them, because all the marbles were on the line. You know, this was for all the marbles. They had a lot on the table here to gain and a lot to lose if Trump didn't get elected. And they won. Boy, did they win. And so now Elon Musk and Donald Trump are illegally circumventing the courts and the guardrails that we've been assured so much are going to prevent Trump from doing anything too crazy. I've obviously been saying since Donald Trump took office, do not fall for the narrative that there are guardrails that are going to stop Trump from doing anything too out there. Donald Trump has no accountability now. There is nothing stopping him now. Anyone trying to tell you that it's fear-mongering to say that he isn't going to be held accountable and he can do anything now does not realize how bad it is, or they're sweeping for Trump. I can't see any other possibility as to why one would argue such a thing. But recently, I'm very happy to say we've seen a rash of the more reasonable and educated people with a platform calling this stuff out. Notably, Legal Eagle over the last year has gotten a lot more into politics, mostly because Donald Trump's been so frequently embroiled in legal fiascos. It's been, a lot of good material for Legal Eagle to cover. And in this case, he's come out and made a video about Elon Musk's hijacking of the government. Now, I've been covering it step by step, but man, it's only been like a month. Oh no, it hasn't even been a month. It hasn't been a month yet. It hasn't even been a month yet, and we're already where we are now. All this shit is going to happen at such a rate, so frequently, and in such a large magnitude, history is going to have a hard time remembering every point of import in the fall of America that we're experiencing right now. And so what I hope is that this video will help to catch us up on the situation, considering there's been some parts of this whole Elon Musk takeover that I have not entirely been tuned into. So we're going to be taking a look at this as I switch to screen capture from game capture. We're going to take a look at this video by Legal Eagle. Of course, there'll be a video down below in the description when this goes out on YouTube, of course. We love Legal Eagle. I highly recommend you check out his stuff. And we won't be watching the whole video. We're not going to just, react to it or whatever in its entirety. Certainly not. But I want to check out the main points here and give some of my thoughts, and particularly predictions. You guys always go crazy for my predictions about what I think is going to happen in the future, so let's take a look.
Elon Musk seems to have access to all of your private government data. You're cool with that, right? Well, backed by President Trump, Elon Musk has been given the keys to the kingdom, almost literally. Musk and a hodgepodge group of engineers, some as young as 19, successfully secured access to sensitive government databases and the Treasury Department's payment system through an unprecedented series of bureaucratic maneuvers. Musk and his team seem to be operating in secrecy with little to no oversight. And Musk seems to have access to sensitive data about seemingly every American. So everyone has been asking whether it's legal for Elon Musk to have this much power and this much data. And the answer may surprise and disturb you. The new Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent granted Musk and his Department of Government Efficiency team access to the federal payment system, which processes over $5 trillion annually in Social Security, Medicare, and tax refunds. But people who worked for Musk at SpaceX and Twitter are now government employees with direct access to all this information. For example, a recent report by Wired revealed that Marco Ellis, a 25-year-old
basically everything that the federal government gives you through your identification of your Social Security number is now compromised by Elon Musk. I'm pretty sure Elon now has like every American Social Security number, which is fucking insane that a foreign billionaire now has every American's name and Social Security number downloaded to some private server. That's very, very scary. That's everything you need to steal someone's identity and fuck them over severely. Yeah, like there is a potential for all of America to get its identity stolen. It's actually really scary. And who knows what Elon's going to do with all that data? You know that it's going to be sell it to the highest bidder. There's going to be like international bids on all this data. You know that, right? Like, you think Elon's going to just hold on to it to his grave, or you think he's going to use it to recoup the losses of the massive drop in Tesla stock we've seen the last week?
Engineer has direct access to the U.S. Treasury Department's Payment Automation Manager, or PAM, and the Secure Payment System, the SPS. These systems are responsible for managing a significant portion of government disbursements, including Social Security, Medicare benefits, federal salaries, government contract payments, and tax refunds. Ellis's access reportedly includes administrator-level privileges, allowing him to read and write code within these critical systems. And Ellis reportedly had the ability to make those changes without testing them first. Treasury employees tried to fight back against what they believed to be illegal orders. Acting Treasury Secretary David Lebrick resigned on January 31st, 2025, following a dispute with Musk allies. Lebrick had served in various capacities within the Treasury Department.
This is an example. Okay, I'm going to acknowledge this now because I need people to know it. I have been seeing this narrative popping up among leftists, this idea that the Democrats are giving up and not fighting against Trump and what he's trying to do, and this is objectively not true. What is happening is that across the government, nonpartisan employee positions those people are stepping down. People at like the head of the Treasury and stuff, these are nonpartisan positions that of people that are paid employees of the federal government. These are the people stepping down and quitting because they know they're either going to get fired, they're going to get like God knows what. They don't want to be near the federal government with what's coming. They're just workers. They're the cogs in the machine, okay? Our actual Democrat representatives, I think it was the House, they spent like 30 straight hours on the floor gish-galloping to delay, the same way the Republicans do, trying to pull their same tricks to try and like slow them down, to delay, I think it was Tulsi Gabbard from getting certified as the head of the FBI. Correct me if I'm wrong. So you're going to see a lot of instances of like nonpartisan, unelected federal job positions, people stepping down, and then it's going to get framed by people who don't really understand politics and just want to fearmonger and get easy like likes and clicks and affirmation from other people on the left. They're going to be like, the Dems are just leaving. They're just giving up. They're just walking away. I've heard this a lot. It is it's nonsense. Don't fall for it.
Department for several decades and was appointed as the Fiscal Assistant Secretary in 2014. CNN reported that Bessent threatened Lebrick with legal consequences if he did not grant DOGE the ability to stop payments. And Musk's control of the Treasury includes the Bureau of the Fiscal Service, which, quote, handles more than 1 billion financial transactions annually for the U.S. government, both outgoing grants and payments and incoming tax receipts. While serving as the largest cash management operation in the world, BFS collects personal and financial information about the people and businesses on the other side of the transactions, including names, social security numbers, birth dates, birthplaces, home addresses and telephone numbers, email addresses, and bank account information. What could Musk do with all of that data? Oh, nothing. Just sell it, use it for blackmail, delete it, alter it, make it all public, or feed it into some giant non-secure AI. It really could be all that bad. And that's just the beginning. Man. Musk has already shared data with
the AI. Imagine one day some Russian guy just goes to like Grok and asks, what is social security number of John Anderson, American who lives in Ohio at this address. What is their social security number? And then it just pops out their social security number. Because Elon just feeds all the data into Grok. Oh, man. We're so fucked. That's the way that AI ruins the world. It's not a Terminator or Matrix scenario. It's just Grok ends up spitting out everyone's social security number when asked. Every American's. And the whole world descends into anarchy.
With outsiders. For example, Musk posted about his fines on Twitter. He revealed specific federal payments to Lutheran social services organizations. Musk called these payments illegal. They are not illegal. The BFS is also responsible for Treasury bond interest payments, and apparently Musk and his team have read-write control of BFS systems, which were coded decades before they were born. So is any of this legal? Well, probably not. Here are all the laws that Musk potentially has broken. Now, the issue is broader than whether Alez or the other DOGE team members could change code. Federal agencies have...
To be fair, that's not the... I hope he brings up the locking... the Democrats out of the Department of Education building and the other buildings in the Capitol too that they've been locking up and keeping Dems out of. I'm pretty sure that has to be illegal, right? I'm sure somehow only for Republicans it's not, though.
Have improperly stopped sending money Congress lawfully allocated. And as we've covered recently, and we'll probably cover again in greater detail, most of it is flatly illegal. The Supreme Court ruled unanimously in Train versus New York that when Congress directs the money to be spent, the president is obligated to do it. Otherwise, Congress's laws, that is, the laws of this country, would be merely advisory to the president. And we kind of fought a war to prevent that. And fundamentally, the president refusing to spend money as Congress directed violates the appropriations
Okay, so Elon can't do it. Trump just has to do it. Okay.
Clause as well as the Take Care Clause of the Constitution. And failing to spend congressionally required funds.
Remember, guys, good guy Trump, who's definitely good, and everyone who doesn't like him just has Trump derangement syndrome, giving him full legal immunity was very necessary because Trump never actually does anything wrong, and if they had anything against him, they would have taken him down by now, surely, right? So he totally needed that legal immunity for some reason, because he totally didn't fight for legal immunity and have his Supreme Court of appointees that he put in place give him that because he doesn't need it, right? Like, he'd never actually need that immunity because everyone who thinks he does bad things just has Trump derangement syndrome, right? God, it's just mass gaslighting. Let's not pretend it's something it's not. It is literally mass gaslighting that MAGA does to us. It's actually, like, low-key very disrespectful.
Funds also violates the Impoundment Control Act of 1974, and spending funds that have not been appropriated or making obligations that exceed agency regulations violate the Anti-Deficiency Act. Now, there are a lot of people who think the government is too large and that it should scale back its spending. That is a totally valid point of view. But what is not legitimate is the executive unilaterally cutting spending required by law in violation of the Constitution and numerous other federal laws. And that is what's happening here. It is incredibly illegal. Moving fast and breaking things doesn't work when you are messing with systems that are, again, required by law. And it's an especially bad sign when this...
Correct me if I'm wrong. Isn't that Apple's slogan? I really love, I love that Apple and its slogan, move fast and break things, has become the new, no, it's Meta's. That's Facebook's. Oh, great. I love how that's become the new, tech bro motto. That's what tech bros do. They move fast and break things. And they brag about that as if that's not a blatantly bad thing.
The same party controls all three branches of government. Not in the sense of making policy that some people won't like, but in the sense that Trump could accomplish all of these things by simply asking Congress to pass laws to that effect. Congress could pass a law tomorrow to delete USAID, the CFPB, or the Department of Education. But even though Republicans control both houses of Congress, many, if not most, of these cuts would likely fail to pass. And President Trump and Elon Musk seek to circumvent the proper process entirely, while at the same time they vilify the judges who are enjoining their plainly illegal acts and preserving the status quo. But that's probably just the beginning of the illegal acts. What about all the data that they're accessing and changing? Let's start with the Privacy Act of 1974. Under this law, no one can disclose a private record unless, quote, the individual to whom a record pertains consents, unless there is an exception. These exceptions would be if officers and employees of the agency, quote, have a need for the record in the performance of their duties, or...
There's no doubt that Elon's allowed to have access to that information. Whether or not he's allowed to, hold on to it and do God knows what with it into the future, that's the question.
If there is a routine use stipulated in the SORN. Now, these exceptions don't appear to apply in this case. And Musk's Treasury break-in also arguably violates the Internal Revenue Code, Section 6103, which protects taxpayers.
Mari Spare, I have to tell you something phenomenal. Okay? Do you guys know the narrative about USAID sending condoms to Gaza? It's true. USA did send a bunch of condoms to Gaza. But it wasn't the Gaza next to Israel. It was the Gaza in Africa. There is, I believe, a region or a city called Gaza in Africa. Gaza, spelled the exact same way. And they had a massive STD outbreak, and so part of USAID, they were disseminating contraception to help prevent an STD breakout in Mozambique. It's Gaza, Mozambique. Thank you, Prancing Goldfish. Yeah. Yep. Wasn't even Gaza. It was Mozambique. Gaza, Mozambique in Africa. Oh, man. You can't make this shit up, dude. So that was another Elon lie. Everything they say is a lie. Don't ever let yourself be surprised. If you ever catch yourself being surprised something they said is a lie, you have parts of you that think they have any capability of honesty.
Taxpayer information from unauthorized access or disclosure. The BFS processes tax returns and other IRS-related payments. And by giving DOGE operatives access to these systems, IRS records, including individual tax return data, may have been improperly exposed. Section 6103 prohibits federal employees and third parties from accessing or disclosing taxpayer return information unless specifically authorized. This section of the law was strengthened after Richard Nixon misused tax records to target political opponents. Now, even high-ranking officials, including the president, have limited access to tax return data, at least in theory. Now, willful unauthorized access or disclosure of tax return information is a felony under IRC 7213, punishable by fines and imprisonment. Additionally, the Computer Fraud and Abuse Act makes it a crime to intentionally access a federal computer system without authorization or exceed authorization access to obtain sensitive information. 18 U.S.C. 1030 covers the theft or misuse of government data, and we already know that Musk has shared specific federal payment records, which could be evidence of unauthorized disclosure of protected.
Yeah, but any charges like that would probably come after Trump's administration, assuming it ever comes to an end, because for one, this has to be enforced. Remember, Trump, there are a lot of what are looked at right now as disparate stories that if you know what their game plan is, are all obvious steps to conjoin together in their grand coup plan. One of them is a story that didn't really get a lot of attention recently, and that was when Trump fired, I think it was 11 inspectors general. For those who don't know, the job of inspectors general is to oversee the Department of Justice. You know, the same department that oversees Trump. So Trump illegally fired people whose job it is to oversee the department that oversees him. That did not get enough attention, in my opinion. But that right there is step one in a many-step process to erode our legal system down to non-existence. It is a slow boiling of the frog process, but it is getting exponentially faster as we get more and more used to that boiling water. Within a year from now, I would not be surprised if the conversation has moved substantially to much more severe discussions of what Trump can and can't do.
Protected data. Under that same section, there's intentional damage to a protected computer, which punishes unauthorized access for personal or political gain. Those sections might apply if DOGE access Treasury data for political targeting, corporate advantage, or to manipulate federal.
Sorry, update, by the way. Thank you, Prancing Goldfish. Trump illegally fired 7 more inspectors general recently, bringing the total count up to 18 illegal firings of people whose job it is to oversee the Department of Justice, which oversees the president. Mind you, the DOJ are the ones that Trump has had a massive bone to pick with since 2016, due to the Mueller report and the Cohen testimony and all that, the Russia stuff, all that shit.
Spending. The CFAA violations carry severe consequences, including fines and up to 10 years in prison for serious offenses. There's also the Fair Credit Reporting Act, which limits access to credit data that includes Social Security numbers to those who have a permissible purpose under the law. And then the Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act, known as HIPAA, protects the privacy of health information that identifies an individual and restricts healthcare organizations from disclosing such information to others without the patient's consent. And obviously, it's illegal to disclose someone's Social Security number without their consent.
18, Trump hates that number? True, you call it the age of consent. Trump calls it the wall.
The Identity Theft and Assumption Deterrence Act, 18 U.S.C. 1028, also applies. This law makes it a federal crime to knowingly and intentionally use someone's social security number to commit identity theft or fraud. Penalties for identity theft can include fines and imprisonment up to 15 years or both. And there's also the Social Security Number Protection Act of 2010, which imposes restrictions on the use of social security numbers by businesses and entities. And many states have their own laws and provide additional protection for social security numbers, including restrictions on how social security numbers can be used, shared, and stored. But it seems like DOGE's access to the U.S. Treasury means that Musk can see all federal disbursements, including those from the Department of Veterans Affairs. This system contains sensitive information such as social security numbers and VA benefit details of numerous veterans. 38 U.S.C. 5701 protects veterans' records held by the VA, including benefits, medical history, and personal identifiers. And VA records cannot be shared without the veteran's consent. But Musk's actions also pose massive foreign intelligence and espionage risks. Past government breaches, including the 2013 OPM hack by Chinese operatives, highlight how dangerous it is when government data is not properly secured. And the irony of all this is that just 6 weeks ago, the U.S.
Do you remember Butthurt emails? Do you remember that? Butthurt emails. That entire scandal was over Hillary Clinton downloading her emails to a private server. Back then, that sounded scary as fuck, but now nowadays I feel like that, like the concept of downloading data to a private server is so much less foreign or like high-tech sounding. Like people do that all the time now, especially if they work in the field, any field that uses a computer. Downloading info to a private server, tons of people do that for work. Tons of people do that just to hold data or to hold like movies and shows and stuff when they don't have like internet or whatever. Like that's not really considered the super scary crazy thing anymore. And yet back then it was this massive scandal over Hillary downloading, and it was illegal, at least I think. Honestly, it might not have been in her case. Just download the emails that she did download to her private server. It might not have even been illegal. But regardless, people said it was, and they were all mad about it. And the emails thing was like a big reason for why you supposedly had to support Trump over Hillary. And yet now Elon is downloading very, very personal information of Americans to his private server. Mind you, richest man in the world. Not even American. And we're all good with that. We're all good with that. Obviously, we're not, but America at large is not screaming about it like they did when it came to Hillary's private email server.
The U.S. government was sounding the alarm about China using TikTok to steal your private information, and now the government is handing over private information to Elon Musk personally. Now, obviously, if you're going to try and shut down the entire government, you probably want a good lawyer. But if you want a great lawyer, let my law firm, the Eagle Team, help. If you've gotten in a car crash, if you've suffered...
Oh, that is a good lead-in for a sponsor. I'm not going to lie. I really like that Legal Eagle's only sponsor, at least in any of the videos I've watched recently, are his own law firm that he set up. Because, like, you guys know I've taken one sponsor in my whole time of doing YouTube, and it's because they were willing to send me a free sample to try before I took the sponsor, and I liked it. It was a good product, and many people in chat still like the coldest water bottle. They're like, yeah, that shit was good. I still got my coldest water bottle. I still have both mine. And so I don't generally take YouTube sponsorships because, as most of you guys know, or probably already suspect, 99.99% of products and companies that sponsor YouTubers are fucking scams. Like everything from the meal prep services to the poster services to like just everything. The VPNs are garbage. There's no, rarely is a good product being advertised via YouTube sponsorships, right? But they're how a lot of YouTubers fill in the gaps of income that get fucked up by YouTube's fuckery, you know? And so you don't want to rock the boat in the YouTube landscape. But it means that a lot of content creators that I really respect, I see them like, I lose a little respect for them every time when I see them shilling for some garbage product that I know they don't actually endorse. It's like, oh man, come on. But with Legal Eagle, he just sponsors himself. He can do that. Oh, no. Yeah, TSW Shadow Wolf. It's just an example of, like, YouTube does a lot of fuckery, and unfortunately there's this, like, standard, and no one, like, really talks about it, where a lot of these products are just kind of garbage. And I think most YouTubers, if they could get away with it, would tell their fans not to actually buy these products, and just to chill and let them make the money off of the sponsorships. Maybe click the link to help them out. But obviously they can't say that. They can't tell you not to actually buy it. They have to endorse it in order to get paid.
suffered a data breach, especially if you got one of those data breach letters saying that your information might have been leaked, or are dealing with a workers' comp or social security issue, we can represent you or help find you the right attorney. It's so important to talk to a lawyer right away so you can maximize your recovery. And by the way, we don't get paid unless you do, so there's nothing up front. So click on the link in the description or call the phone number that's on screen for a free consultation with my team. Because you don't just need a legal team, you need the legal team. But unfortunately, it's a big problem when the alarm is coming from inside the house. So many of these laws require enforcement by the executive. And if the executive grants authority or just refuses to prosecute violations, there's not...
What was I thinking? Legal Eagle is smarter than me and knows way more about law than I do. Of course, he's going to acknowledge the fact that all of our systems to actually pursue justice for any illegal actions taken have been eroded and will be continued to be eroded. So there's not really much you can do, even if it's illegal on paper. He knows.
Not a lot that can be done, which leaves a limited number of instances when private citizens can sue on their own behalf. Now, citizens can sue the government if their privacy rights are violated under certain privacy acts. And that's already started to happen. On February 3rd, the Alliance for Retired Americans, the AFL-CIO, and the Service Employees International Union filed lawsuits against Basant, the Department of the Treasury, and the BFS. The plaintiffs seek declaratory and injunctive relief to stop the unlawful disclosure of personal and financial information to Elon Musk and members of DOGE. The plaintiffs argue that millions of individuals, including retirees, taxpayers, federal employees, and contractors, are affected by this unprecedented access, compromising their sensitive data without their consent. The federal employees did not consent to these disclosures, nor, I assume, did anyone who was watching this video. The plaintiffs say that when Basant gave DOGE full access to the Bureau's records and computer systems, he violated the Privacy Act of 1974's public notice requirements. And additionally, the complaint alleges that when the Treasury makes a change of this magnitude under the Administrative Procedures Act, it must give a System of Records Notice, or SORN, in the Federal Register for 30 days while allowing public comment before taking any action. And on February 6th, a federal judge granted plaintiffs a preliminary injunction limiting the access of DOGE employees to the Treasury. Now, the order is a mixed bag. It does not give Musk the ability to review or change Treasury data, which is good, but this may not matter since Musk has had access to the data for at least 2 weeks. And the judge's order permits special government employee Marco Alez to have read-only access to the Treasury systems. But a Wired report on February 7th asserted that the Department of Justice lied about whether Alez had right access or not. And following that report, Alez resigned from DOGE after his social media posts were discovered. He apparently advocated for eugenics and for the repeal of the Civil Rights Act. Alez tweeted, quote, "Normalize..."
Yeah, so what they're talking about right now is that when it comes to the software that manages these payments, take for instance like tax refunds, that kind of thing. These are all done through the Treasury's payment system. And the software that does all of that can have, a user of that software can have two types of permission: read-only permission or write permission. And read-only means that, like, you can only interface with the program. You can only, like, use it to a very limited degree. You can't change the software. You can't fundamentally change what the software does. You can only operate it for what it's meant to do. But what some in Elon's team, such as this lovely individual here, had the permission to do, they had write permission. These were tech bros. These were guys who were meant to go in and rebuild the software the Treasury uses to do its payments, which could have meant God knows what if they made a mistake, God knows what if they decided to do something bad with the information and the data they would have available to them while doing this. And then on top of that, one of these lovely lads, these young gentlemen, decided to go on social media and talk about how pro-genocide he is, how pro-euthanasia he is, or not euthanasia, eugenics he is, and, of course, the iconic tweet, "Normalize Indian hate." So yes, these are the little college tech bros that Elon Musk has brought in to literally fuck around with the software that manages the payment system of our federal government. Yeah, his little Shitler youth, exactly.
Indian hate, and 99% of Indian H-1Bs will be replaced by slightly smarter LLMs. They're going back, don't worry, guys. And, quote, "You couldn't pay me to marry outside of my ethnicity." But don't worry, Musk conducted a poll on Twitter.
Only in America. Only in America are our people so retarded that we will pay so much money into taxes for our education system, an education system that pays immigrant students, or that like, not pays, but like pays for immigrant students to go to school in our country, and then to apply that education into work in our country, acting as extremely valuable labor. Only America is stupid enough to take that population who we've technically invested immense amounts of tax money into educating and tell them, get the fuck out. Take your education and your college degree and go back to the country you came from, where all your money is going to take you further, and now we lose out on all the benefit of that. And not only are we doing that, but Donald Trump has convinced us Americans, I say us very vaguely, has convinced Americans that somehow that's a good deal and that's us winning. You paid taxes to educate immigrant students who were working here and helping the economy and paying back into a system that benefited everyone, a cycle that benefited everyone. But now all that money spent on education, all that money, just send them overseas. Just send them overseas back to where they came from. Fuck these valuable, educated laborers. People who are able to help us be competitive in very important industries. Oh yeah, let's just give back all those visa students and workers to China. I'm sure that's going to help us so much in beating China in the war of manufacturing and trade. Dude, that's going to help so much, bro. Totally. Dude, Americans really are that stupid.
About whether Les should return. And what a surprise, the incel brigade on Twitter thinks that he should return. Vice President J.D. Vance, who is married to an Indian American, and President Trump also spoke out on his behalf. But it looks like the restrictions will remain in place while the lawsuit proceeds. But again, this is a mixed bag. Several reporters have claimed that DOGE employees, including Les, have already made extensive changes to the payment system's codebase with limited oversight. But the judge's order put a stop to that. And hopefully DOGE employees will actually follow the order. Yeah, you can bet that you're going to hear me say, hopefully they follow the court order a lot in the coming years. Yeah, can we just make up a graphic that says, hopefully they follow the court order? Because
hopefully
we're going to do that a lot. Additionally, Secretary Besant has now appointed Silicon Valley's Tom Krause as his assistant.
Who can make
so apparently
them?
Krause is one of Musk's top lieutenants, and he now has access to the payment system as well. And to summarize, Krause told Treasury career staff to stop payments to USAID. The staffer resisted, saying it was illegal, and the staffer was ousted. Krause is now head of payments at Treasury. Of course, the question on everyone's minds is who would prosecute Elon Musk and his operatives for disclosing taxpayer information. Now, traditionally, the FBI and the Department of Justice would investigate and prosecute people who break the law. But the Department of Justice is now stacked with MAGA lawyers like Ed Martin, who threatened to prosecute anyone who refused to give Musk and his men the access they demanded. Ed Martin is the current U.S. attorney for the District of Columbia, and he's also the guy that dismissed charges against one of the January 6th insurrectionists, who he happened to be currently representing in private practice. You just can't make this up. Adding to our nightmares that Trump is...
You know what it feels like? Corruption is so normalized that if you're not openly corrupt, then you must be even more corrupt but hiding it. And if you can hide it so well, then you must be a bigger threat than the one who can't, like Trump. Do you think that's the logic a lot of people are using? Like, they think that all politics is corrupt, and that if the Democrats keep their nose clean, they try to stay out of the news, they try not to get themselves into trouble, but from the Americans' perspective, they'll never ever see that as a positive. They'll never see politicians and think a positive thing. So instead, it's like, oh, they must be just more secret and competent with their corruption. Which I guess with that logic, that the Democrats would be scarier, right? Yeah, they're all crooked is what the average normie thinks of politics can confirm. Yeah, I wonder if that's really the frog that's been boiling. If fundamentally people's not caring about blatant corruption is really the boiling frog we've needed to be so worried about. I feel like it's the rich where the path to achieve success is paved in evil. Xanderhall, they've been through this before in the Gilded Age. I get that. I've seen your messages still answer. I wouldn't agree that I'm like the journalists in the Gilded Age that spoke truth to power. I'm nowhere near large enough or influential enough to be considered that. But maybe one day. I do appreciate the sentiment though. But yeah, it is definitely what Trump wants to do is bring America back to the Gilded Age, which was very good for like 4 dudes.
Is trying to lay off over 5,000 of the FBI's 13,700 agents, basically half of the FBI, and is poised to install Kash Patel as head of the FBI. But the states do have a role to play in enforcing the law, and a coalition of 19 Democratic states' attorneys general have filed a lawsuit to prevent DOGE from accessing federal payment systems containing sensitive personal information. And there, the plaintiffs argue that granting DOGE access to sensitive Treasury payment systems is arbitrary and capricious, lacks proper justification, and did not follow required procedures, thereby violating the Administrative Procedure Act. The states contend that DOGE's access to Treasury records could interfere with funding already appropriated by Congress, exceeding the Treasury Department's statutory authority and violating the constitutional principle of separation of powers. They assert that Trump's actions violate the Take Care Clause of the Constitution, and the state's plaintiffs are also concerned that DOGE's access poses significant cybersecurity risks that may compromise sensitive personal information and the integrity of the federal payment system. And related to that, a federal judge has temporarily blocked DOGE from accessing the Treasury's payment system. The judge said, quote, "The court's firm assessment..."
Let's hope they follow the court order.
Is that for the reasons stated by the states, they will face irreparable harm in the absence of injunctive relief. This is both because of the risk that the new policy presents of the disclosure of sensitive and confidential information, and the heightened risk that the systems in question will be more vulnerable than before to hacking. The court's further assessment is that, again, for the reasons given by the states have shown a likelihood of success on the merits of their claims, with the state's statutory claims presenting as particularly strong. The court's further assessment is that the balance of the equities, for the reasons stated by the states, favors the entry of emergency relief. And the judge has now granted the plaintiff state's motion for enforcement of a temporary restraining order. Now, mind you, a TRO is ultra-temporary. It's just preserving the status quo so the court can learn more about the situation and the parties can provide further briefing. But the court issued the TRO to prohibit the defendants from implementing a broad categorical freeze on federal spending. The court agreed with plaintiffs that the Trump administration is not complying with the order, and the judge emphasized that the government must promptly comply with court orders, citing Manis versus Myers, the Supreme Court, which says, quote, "Persons who make private determinations of the law and refuse to obey an order..."
The problem is the current Supreme Court. And he knows. He's going to say this too, I'm sure. The problem is the current Supreme Court. Mind you, you know what Trump's plan is, right? I'm going to keep saying this so that when it happens, you guys are like, "Oh, Zan, you were right." But this is not me predicting the future. This is me telling you exactly what Trump and Project 2025 outlines. The plan with the Supreme Court is for justices like Clarence Thomas, ones like Republican judges who are getting old, pretty much all of them, to step down during Trump's next 4 years so Trump can appoint new red justices who will all be in their 30s. That is what Project 2025 lays out. Every new justice that Trump will be replacing all the current Republican ones with will be in their 30s. The goal here, as they outline in Project 2025, is to control the Supreme Court for at least the next 50 years. That's the quote. At least the next 50 years. And so that is their current plan. And it'll probably be more than that. Remember, these are lifetime terms unless you step down. So it's going to be a stacked Republican Supreme Court for about half a century now. That is what we are dealing with due to Trump's victory. Keep in mind all these little things whenever you deal with like a lefty telling you that voting for Kamala was not that important in this election.
Generally risk criminal contempt, even if the order is ultimately ruled incorrect. The court found that the defendants had notice of the TRO, that the order was clear and unambiguous, and that there were no impediments to compliance. Despite this, evidence presented by the plaintiff states indicated that the defendants continued to freeze federal funds and refused to resume disbursement of appropriated funds, which violated the TRO. The Trump administration argued that the freezes were intended to prevent fraud. However, the court noted that these freezes resulted from a broad categorical order rather than a specific findings of potential fraud. The court reiterated that such sweeping freezes are likely unconstitutional and cause for irreparable harm, thus violating the TRO. So what does the Trump administration have to do now? Well, quote, immediately restore frozen funding during the pendency of the TRO until the court hears and decides the preliminary injunction request, immediately end any federal funding pause during the pendency of the TRO, immediately take every step necessary to effectuate the TRO, including clearing any administrative, operational, or technical hurdles to implementation, comply with the plain text of the TRO not to pause any funds based on pronouncements, pausing funding incorporated into the OMB directive like Section 7A of the Unleashing Executive Order and the OMB Unleashing Guidance, immediately restore withheld funds, including those federal funds appropriated in the Inflation Reduction Act and the Infrastructure Improvement and Jobs Act, and resume the funding of institutes and other agencies of the defendants, for example, the National Institute for Health, that are included in the scope of the court's TRO. Now, so far, the Trump administration has been at least telling the court that they are complying or attempting to comply with various orders. It'll be
I love the little pop-up. Hopefully they follow the court order, because once again, there is no oversight. There's no enforcement of these things. There will not be any enforcement. Mark my words. At no point will there be a big story where a single part of Donald Trump's cabinet is being charged by the DOJ, investigated by the FBI. Nothing like that. Nothing like that gets to happen this time. They control every bit of government. They're going to ignore the lower courts. They're going to ignore the higher... Well, there are no higher courts they need to ignore. The higher courts are on their side now. Yeah, Trump is unburdened by what has been.
Another issue entirely if they just outright ignore orders like Musk and Trump have been saying that they will do. So it's going to be important to watch what happens in the wake of this particular TRO. Now, when the court stopped Elon Musk from accessing U.S. Treasury data, almost 400 sources reported on it, with the vast majority of them coming from the center and the left. But when you examine the headlines, you start to see some very different frames emerge that shape how readers interpret and understand the events that are unfolding. On the right, headlines emphasize Musk's claims that he found $50 billion worth of fraud at the Treasury Department, implying these claims correlate to the judge's ruling and implying that Elon Musk actually did find fraud. And headlines from the right also point to small legal ambiguities in the judge.
I saw a meme, or not a meme, a post earlier today. It was a headline. It was a quote tweet of a headline. The headline said, Elon Musk says he's found 417 or something like, or it was like $317 million in quote unquote wasted tax spending that will be returned to the American people. And of course, all the Republicans are freaking out about how great this is in their replies. And the quote tweet I saw was, people who can't do division are so hyped about this. Big day for people who can't do division.
Judge's ruling that could lead to it being overturned, a story angle largely absent from headlines on the left and center sources, who mainly focus on the risks of Elon Musk having unfettered access to sensitive and critical data. Now, the headlines you read first have immense power to shape how you understand the news. And that's why I like to see the news from as many angles as possible, which I can do with the help of today's sponsor, Ground News. Ground News is a website and app developed by a former NASA engineer on a mission to give readers an easy...
He does have the Ground News sponsor. At least Ground News is not a scam from what I can tell. It does do what it advertises itself to do, but I'll never use it because I don't like care about any of the things that Ground News does. You know, I just find my news sources the old-fashioned way. Yeah, I mean, I heard it's an all right it's an all right software or subscription, but it's not for me. I don't need it. I live in the news. I'm steeped in the news. I am the news, frankly. I am the news. Anyway, listen, America may be crashing and burning. This is America's crash out era, but at least we're all here to point and laugh about all of it, right? Anyway, listen, guys. If y'all enjoyed this segment, if you found it enjoyable, educational, or in any way entertaining, then please consider leaving a like. Every single thumbs up goes a long way to boost my channel and the algorithm, especially if you're watching live right now. I highly appreciate every single thumbs up. Same goes for subscriptions, bell icons being rung so that YouTube actually tells you when I go live or upload new videos in the future, and if you leave a comment when this goes out as its own video. Likes and comments, ooh, man, they help. Like to a massive degree. Likes and comments directly correlate with channel and video performance. So the more you guys do that, even though it's free, it really means a lot, and I really appreciate it. You can also follow my social medias, linked down below in the description if you haven't already, and you want to see more from me on other platforms. And of course, if you want to see more stuff from me in the future to support the channel directly, help me keep the lights on, the roof above my head here at the Xander Hall studio, then consider donating, subscribing, or gifting a sub on my website, xanderhall.com/live, or support me through YouTube, Twitch, Streamlabs, Stream Elements, Patreon, or buy some merch through the Streamlabs link down below in the description. Regardless, though, thank you so much for watching as always. No matter how you support me, I really do appreciate it. And as always, I hope you have a good one, and I hope to see you again.